Hey guys, it's Senti Reads, and as you can see by the video title, today I'll be talking about a very strange Christian romance novel I recently read. Christian media is not something I typically consume, romance or otherwise. Hell, I hardly ever read any kind of romance. Am I allowed to swear in a video about a Christian book? Fuck it, I'm doing it. Christians, this is not a positive review, so be warned. Anyway, this novel was way out of my wheelhouse, which is why I chose it. I've been in a bit of a reading slump.
You guys, I have been in the worst reading rut in probably my whole life.
So I wanted to read a new genre to give myself a little reset. Today's novel is Peril on the Ranch by Lynette Eason. I found this little gem while trolling the Kindle Unlimited catalog, which is a veritable treasure chest of trash. Not that this book is trash per se, but you can tell by the cover that it's a little goofy and not in an intentional way. There's a racially ambiguous man mean-mugging someone or something out of view, and you can tell by the denim on denim that he definitely works on a ranch. He's standing protectively in front of a conventionally attractive blonde woman with a baby. The baby is not wearing any denim, so I'm not sure if he or she is involved with the ranch or the peril that will befall it. The trio is photoshopped over top a generic country landscape with ominous storm clouds overhead, further indicating the peril the ranch will face. The tagline on the top marks this novel as love-inspired suspense inspirational romance, which is a mouthful now that I read it out loud. And to my understanding, inspirational romance is just a marketing term for Christian romance. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that. I was drawn to this cover specifically because I thought I'd be reading a corny, melodramatic romance, not unlike something you'd see on the Hallmark Channel. Something light and a little silly. I must have missed the part where it said this was a suspense, because boy was I wrong about that. This book is so incredibly violent that it made me say what the fuck out loud multiple times while reading. I'm a horror thriller writer, so I'm no stranger to violence, but I was definitely not expecting to see so much of it in an inspirational romance novel. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you all about the titular Peril on the Ranch.
Where are all the country girls?
They're at farmersonly.com.
The book opens with our female romantic lead, Isabel Trent, waking up, which is definitely not a cliche way to start a novel. She hears crying and assumes it's one of her foster children, who are largely unimportant to the book's plot and exist only as puppets to show how virtuous Isabel is for being a foster parent. She follows the sound of the crying to her front porch, where she discovers a baby has been left on her doorstep. Okay, so we're jumping right into the inciting incident with nary a first act to be found. As a thriller writer, I'm all for a fast pace, but this is too much. It's typical to show at least a little bit of the main character's life before something comes along to shake it up, but I digress. Isabel finds the baby on the porch and is about to bring the baby, who is a girl, inside when she sees a hooded figure off in the distance. She doesn't know if they are the person who dropped off the baby, but they seem to want the baby back because they then try to break into her fucking house. This is the first scene of the novel and we're already getting a home invasion. Isabel doesn't bother to have any type of conversation with this person, which honestly same, and instead opts to immediately call 911. Before the authorities can get there, a truck pulls up into her driveway. It's the racially ambiguous man from the cover. Yes, it's only the first chapter, and even the first scene, and we're already meeting the love interest. This book does not have time to fuck around. I shit you not, his name is Brian McGee. McGee! It feels like a lame filler name the author threw down and meant to replace later, but didn't. Good thing he goes by Mac for the rest of the book, which is just as generic, but I guess it's better than Brian McGee. Mac is here to interview for a position as a live-in ranch hand, and he's conveniently super early for his interview. He shows up right as the hooded figure breaks a window and is about to get inside, which is extra convenient. Mac scares the guy off, and the police, who are widely useless over the course of this novel, arrive. Despite almost being burgled, or perhaps something even worse, Isabel has time to spout some exposition about the ranch. It's named Jo Bell Ranch, Jo after her deceased husband Josiah, and Bell after Isabel herself. Yes, Isabel is a widow, and so is Mac. Well, I guess he's a widower, but whatever. I think the whole widower thing is a way to give the main character's prior romantic experience in a way that's wholesome and definitely not slutty in like a premarital sex way. Like, this is a way to get around that. Anyway, the police officers happen to be friends of Isabel from high school. They're named Grant and Regina, and even though they are reoccurring characters throughout the book, I don't remember a damn thing about either of them. The officers take a statement from Mac, who tells them that the perp rode off on a motorcycle he must have stashed in the woods behind the ranch. Continuing with the novel's breakneck pace, a worker from Child Protective Services arrives to address the whole abandoned baby issue. Luckily, there was a note in the basket that the baby was left in that says her name is Lily, and the mother specifically wanted to give her to Isabel. The CPS worker sort of shrugs and goes, "Yeah, that checks out, go ahead and keep the baby," which solves that issue for now. If only the real foster system worked so quickly and efficiently. Both Mac and the police are paranoid that the hooded figure is going to come back for the baby, which means that the CPS worker probably should have taken the baby with her and done her job, but whatever. Isabel doesn't mind putting herself and her 3 other foster children at risk of potentially being murdered if it means she gets to keep an adorable little baby. We then meet Cody Ray, another ranch hand who's too old to be bangable, and Sybil, the cook, who is also too old to be bangable. Like the police officers whose names I've already forgotten, these characters are also widely irrelevant throughout the rest of the book. Apparently Isabel's elderly parents also live on the ranch somewhere, but they really don't contribute anything to the plot. The police officers leave and the CPS worker does end up taking the baby, but only to have her checked out at the hospital before promising to bring her right back to the ranch. I guess this book is a little bit realistic in the sense that the foster system knowingly puts children in unsafe home situations despite presumably having other options. Ouch, too real? Anyway, Isabel then offers Mac the ranch hand job despite not interviewing him at all. Apparently chasing off a home invader / potential murderer was enough to let her know that he can fix fences and tend horses or whatever the fuck it is a ranch hand does. Oh, did I mention this is a live-in position? His living quarters are in the main house where the children also live, not even some separate building out in the field or whatever. It seems irresponsible to let a literal stranger move in with children who may or may not have already been victimized in some way, but what do I know? I've never fostered children, and Isabel has 3 of them. 4 counting the baby. Isabel justifies this piss-poor decision by pointing out that Mac's resume said he's a former police officer, a profession which just so happens to have a huge proportion of domestic abusers. Awesome! Obviously, Mac accepts the offer or we wouldn't have a book, but of course he prefaces it by saying he doesn't plan on sticking around for more than a few months. If you've read or watched any kind of small-town romance, I'm sure you know how that plan's gonna turn out. Isabel mentions some kind of event called a day at the ranch that Mac will need to help her prepare for. As with most things in this book, this plot point doesn't really go anywhere, but we'll get to that later. As Mac starts to leave to go build a fence or whatever ranch hands do, he notices a diploma on the wall. Not just any diploma, but a doctorate of psychiatry that just so happens to belong to Isabel. Would it really be a Christian romance if a highly successful woman didn't give up a career to be a mother? Despite Isabel being well-educated, she makes some truly stupid decisions throughout the book. She must have gone to one of those diploma mill schools like University of Phoenix.
Get connected for free with Education Connection.
Anyway, the CPS lady calls to let Isabel know that the baby is ready to be picked up from the doctor. God damn, everything in this tiny-ass town is super efficient. Isabel leaves and we cut to Mac's perspective to get some more exposition on the ranch. He's just come across an old bull that's out in the field, and whatever that guy's name from before tells him that this bull is really aggressive, but he's going to be sold soon. Put a pin in Chekhov's bull for now. Instead of fixing the fence or doing whatever ranch hands do, Mac instead investigates the woods behind the ranch for clues. He runs into the lady police officer from before, Regina. They find some evidence like a boot print and a scrap from a hoodie or something, because apparently this hooded figure is a real amateur. Maybe the CPS lady is right to not be afraid of him. Cut back to Isabel, who's just picked up Lily, the baby, from the doctor. They go to the grocery store to buy some baby supplies. There's a guy in a hoodie walking around the store, which understandably freaks Isabel out. Maybe she shouldn't have brought the baby in public with a burglar / potential murderer on the loose, but what do I know? We get some more random exposition when Isabel runs into Valerie, some other useless side character, whose husband Travis was friends with Isabel's dead husband, Josiah. It's casually dropped in that Josiah, the dead husband, was killed 2 years ago in a motorcycle accident. I thought this information would be revealed in a more poignant, emotional way rather than just being randomly dropped on us while Isabel is standing in line at the grocery store, but whatever. We get some more exposition that Valerie and Travis own a real estate business and that Travis just made a huge sale he's weirdly keeping secret from Valerie. This sounds stupid, and trust me, it is pretty damn stupid, but eventually this plot point goes somewhere. Isabel leaves the store with Lily, but they don't get too far before she realizes they have a flat tire. She pulls over to check it out and calls Mac to help her because apparently ranch hands also provide roadside assistance. Before she hangs up, she hears a motorcycle in the distance and decides it must be the hooded figure from before, because apparently nobody else in this small town owns a motorcycle. Mac tells her to lock herself in the car and stay on the line while he drives there. The guy on the motorcycle comes into view and gets off the bike, rifling, pun intended, through the saddlebag to get what Mac and Isabel immediately assume is a gun.
Excuse me, what?
Good lord. Wait, can I say that in a video about a Christian book? Anyway, don't worry, because the guy doesn't have a gun. It's just a hammer!
Excuse me, what?
A hammer that he proceeds to throw directly through Isabel's window, conveniently disarming himself and providing a weapon in which she can now use to fight him. Except there is no fighting, because the hammer hit Isabel in the fucking head, and she's not doing so hot. Well, there's a little bit of fighting, but Isabel is too stupid to use the hammer. Thankfully, Max shows up just in time to save her, just like the first time the hooded figure attacked, and if you think this is the last time this is going to happen, you're sorely mistaken. The hooded figure drives off, but Mac doesn't chase him because he's worried about Isabel and the baby. Considering Isabel has a working phone and can call the police to come help her, I'd have gone after the perp, but what do I know? Mac is only a vigilante when the plot needs him to be one. He does end up calling the police, but motorcycle guy is long gone. They load up in Mac's truck and promptly head back to the doctor so Isabel can have her traumatic head injury checked out. On the drive to the hospital, they discuss that the hooded figure must be trying to kidnap Lily, which makes it all the more obvious that the CPS worker should have placed her in another home. The novel sort of glosses over the hospital scene and cuts to them returning home. One of the foster kids is being extra cute, which makes Mac brood vaguely about what he's lost, meaning he probably also has a dead kid in addition to his dead wife. What a wholesome, inspiring romance. There's some more wholesome stuff before Mac goes out to the barn to find Isabel crying against one of the horses. He comforts her, and I'm sure this interaction is meant to be romantic, but these two have absolutely no chemistry. They basically fall into insta-love because of all the dangerous things happening around them, which is not the key to success for a long-term relationship. A couple days pass, and we are reassured that Isabel is not a complete dumbass because she's had a new security system installed. We're reminded that this is a Christian book because she prays, asking God for strength and wisdom. I'd ask God for something cool like a Ferrari, or to strike down the burglar / potential murderer / kidnapper down with a well-placed bolt of lightning, but I'm not a Christian, so what do I know? Another day or so passes, and we're right back into the action. Mac is fixing a fence or whatever when he hears a scream that someone is kidnapping the baby. Baby-napping the baby? Whatever. Apparently that security system did jack shit because Mac sees the hooded figure running into the woods with the baby carrier. He must not be that dedicated to kidnapping because when he sees Mac chasing him, he sets the baby down and runs off. Of course, Mac decides to stay with the baby instead of catching the perp, because then the book would be over. Regina the cop comes back to take another statement, and they talk about potentially giving up Lily. Isabel doesn't want to do that because she says they're bonded now, and apparently that's more important than the baby's safety. She says the hooded figure will just show up wherever CPS places the baby next, which I don't know how she knows that. He'd be able to figure out where the baby is. The guy is clearly an amateur, as I've mentioned many times before. Regina also mentions that the sheriff is looking to hire new deputies, wink wink nudge nudge. Maybe a certain former cop could take the position. To keep the hooded figure at bay, Regina tells Mac he's allowed to start carrying his gun again, and she or another officer will watch the house basically 24/7 to keep them safe. That sounds a whole lot more complicated and expensive than rehoming a baby. And another oddly timed reveal, Mac says he left the force because his wife and 2-year-old son were killed in a car accident, which is apparently the only death this author knows of. Isabel's husband died in a motorcycle accident. Like, my girl Lynette really couldn't come up with something else. Some other stuff happens, and one of the foster kids comes home from school with a smashed up cupcake for Mac. They had some kind of party or something, so she saved him one, which he gratefully accepts despite the fact it's been loose in an elementary schooler's backpack for hours. Like, it's legit not even in a plastic bag or anything. Yuck. We are only 30% of the way through this book, and Isabel is now fully in love with Mac, and the feeling is mutual. They're just too reserved to say anything about it, which I guess is fine given the widower thing. They talk all about that while Mac drives Isabel to a cafe to have a meeting about that day at the ranch event thing. He drops her off, then heads to the police station to talk to a police sketch artist because apparently he got a good enough look at that figure guy from earlier. I don't know. Cut back to the cafe. The owner, Donna, casually mentions that some guy on a motorcycle almost ran her over. Is it the hooded figure? You betcha. Nobody else in town owns a motorcycle. They work out some more details about the upcoming event, and by they, I mean police officer Regina and grocery lady Valerie's husband Travis. They tell Travis about the whole baby napping situation, and he's quick to blame Mac for it. Weird, but okay. He also gets some kind of weird cryptic phone call and just leaves. So Isabel and Regina leave the cafe to go meet Mac. They go to cross the street when a red Mustang, not a motorcycle, blasts through the crosswalk, and there's this dramatic slow motion moment where Mac yells and Regina dramatically pushes Isabel out of the way.
Jason! Jason! No!
So then Regina gets clipped by the car's mirror and goes down while the car quickly drives off. The paramedics come and take them to the hospital. Regina has to get x-rays to see if her arm is broken. Isabel goes back to sit with her and gives yet another statement to the police about what's going on. Eventually they leave and Isabel waits at the entrance while Mac goes to get the car. The moment he walks away, she is promptly kidnapped.
What the fuck?
Someone grabs her and says they have a gun, so she better behave. This fucking lady really can't catch a break. Oh my god. Mac comes back, and when he doesn't see Isabel, he somehow immediately knows she's been kidnapped.
Jason! 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 Jason!
He goes kind of apeshit running around trying to find her, which he somehow immediately does. Good thing he keeps that thing on him because he whips out his gun. But before he can use it, Isabel works up the balls to punch her attacker, which makes him run off like a pussy. This time Isabel chases after him, which pisses off Mac, who for some reason makes no attempt to also chase after him and catch him. Well, the reason is that we're currently only 40% of the way through the book, so it can't be over yet, so Mac can't go after him. But sometimes he'll chase him and sometimes he won't, and it's just weird. The next day, everyone pretends everything is fine, and Valerie, Travis, and their kids come over to the ranch to hang out. Valerie casually mentions that Travis surprised her with a car, which definitely isn't suspicious at all. Valerie gives Isabel a basket of apples that has a handwritten note included, which somehow makes Isabel think about the note that was left with Lily, and somehow gives her an epiphany as to who wrote it, Zoe, one of her former foster kids. If that sounds stupid, it's because it is. How on earth Isabel suddenly made this connection from an entirely unrelated note in a basket of apples is beyond me. Everyone goes and plays outside. Isabel mentions Zoe to the cop security guard who's always around now, but they don't really have time to talk about it because someone starts screaming. Remember Chekhov's bull from earlier? Well, he's back and ready to gore some little foster kids. This violent bull that Isabel somehow hasn't sold yet has also somehow gotten out of its pen and is about to straight up murder a 5-year-old. Cue dramatic showdown of Isabel leading the bull away before then being rescued by Mac again. It was just yesterday that she was nearly abducted at gunpoint after her friend was hit by a car.
Excuse me, what?
This lady's life is fucking nuts! They regroup and immediately somehow know that the bull didn't just get out and this was an intentional sabotage. And sure enough, they go to inspect the fence and find that it's been kicked down. There's even a dusty boot print on it just to really hammer it home that this was sabotage, because you can't be left to assume anything in this book. It will just hold your hand and tell you everything. Some more stuff happens. The sheriff shows up to say he's tracked down Zoe, Isabel's former foster child, the one who happens to be Lily's mother. She's in rehab trying to get her life back on track. Her baby daddy, Drew, the one who got her into drugs and alcohol, isn't so happy about that. They decide the hooded figure must be Drew, who's trying to kidnap Lily to get back at Zoe after she snuck out of the rehab to drop the baby off. If that sounds stupid, that's because it is. Don't think too hard about the logistics of Zoe being able to drop Lily off at the doorstep and fully get out of there before Isabel can see her, but somehow Drew doesn't have enough time to grab the baby and get off the doorstep. It's weird. I don't get it. Don't think about it. More stuff happens. Cue dramatic moment where Max says it's all his fault that his wife and kid died. Something about how they were fighting and he didn't answer the phone, so she left to come see him, and then the car accident happened. I don't really get it. And if that sounds stupid, that's because it is. But that pales in comparison to what happens next. The following day, Isabel says she called social services to have the kids temporarily relocated to a safe house until Drew can be found.
What? What the fuck?
Excuse me? What the fuck? If a safe house was an option, then why didn't they go there from the beginning? Isabel said that the bull attack was the final straw, but somehow having someone try to break in, attack her with a hammer, run over her friend, and kidnap her at gunpoint weren't enough for her to worry about the kids? Mother of the year right there, folks. Oh, and also the baby is staying at the house with Isabel for some reason. Only the other kids are going to the safe house. Don't ask me why. Nothing really happens for a while, thank God. These people need a fucking break. Oh wait, now the barn is on fire. Fuck. They all run to get the horses out while police officer Regina stays behind to watch Lily, fearing that the barn fire is a diversion to be able to kidnap her again. Isabel and Mac fully almost die in the fire trying to rescue the horses, but they manage to make it out. Isabel stumbles out of the burning barn all weak from smoke inhalation, and she's like coughing and struggling when the hooded figure, presumably Drew, runs into her and then kind of just runs away. Don't ask me why. This time Mac and the police actually chase him down and catch him and confirm it's Drew. They had like half a dozen opportunities to do that already, but I guess I had to wait for some reason. We're only 63% through the book now, so that should give you a good idea that something else is going on here. As Drew is loaded into the police car, he admits he's guilty of arson and kidnapping, which, God, that's enough for me. But he has nothing to do with the numerous murder attempts against Isabel and the others. Weird. They kind of ignore that all and cart him off to jail, which he deserved to be in jail anyway for the arson and kidnapping. But he's for sure didn't do those murders or attempted murders. The more stuff happens. Mac and Isabel kiss before Mac says he's decided he's going to leave now that Isabel's safe, because of course he is. Or is he? More stuff happens. For some reason, the police let Mac and Isabel watch Drew's interrogation through a two-way mirror, which is a thing that happens in books all the time, but would absolutely never happen in real life. Drew is still overly adamant that he never tried to kill anyone. He insists the red Mustang isn't his, but the police officer says it doesn't matter that it's not his because that car was stolen at the time, so it could have belonged to anyone, and Drew could have been the one who stole it. Drew yet again says he didn't try to kill anyone, and he definitely didn't steal a car. It turns out that the car belongs to Travis, and it's the car he randomly gifted his wife Valerie, because that's definitely not weird and suspicious at all. Cut to the ranch event day thing the book has been building up to, except the event isn't really described in much detail, in favor of Mac and Isabel having a dramatic goodbye scene. I feel like this could have happened after the event. It kind of feels like a cop-out to me, like the author didn't know how to write this huge event scene, and just sort of used this as an opportunity to skip over it. Mac leaves and the event ends, everyone sort of goes their separate ways, and that night while getting ready for bed, someone breaks into the house again!
Excuse me, what?
Only this time it can't be Drew because he's in jail. Isabel calls the police, then sends the foster kids out the window. Don't worry, it's the first floor window, but is caught before she can get out herself. Yet again, she's held at gunpoint and is led outside to a vehicle. She recognizes the intruder's voice and realizes it's Travis, this random guy who's sort of just been around the periphery of the story this whole time. He explains that he needs her to sell him the ranch because he's already sold it to a buyer and spent the money, I guess, on that car that he bought Valerie. I don't understand why he would do any of that. And how that works, I don't know, because I don't think it works that way. I don't think you can sell something you don't have the deed to. Whatever. He sold it, and he now needs the deed. Whatever. I don't get it. Travis ties Isabel's hands and drives her off to a cabin he owns. He's going to force her to sign over the land to him, then kill her so he can pretend she already signed it over to him before and tell everyone he's only selling the land now because she's dead, and he was just going to own it and let her live there before, but she's dead now, so he can sell it. And if that sounds stupid, that's because it is. I don't really know how he plans to cover up her death without looking suspicious as hell. Isabel, of course, says she won't sign the land over. Travis says fine, that he'll just go kill the foster kids to make her sign, which I don't know how he'd logistically pull that off without being caught, but okay. That's enough to get Isabel to agree to sign the papers. Mac and the others are already out looking because of the previous 911 call, but they don't know who would have taken Isabel or where. Luckily, Valerie, Travis's wife, immediately spills the beans about how weird Travis has been acting and tells them that he snuck out of the house that night, but doesn't know where he went or why. The gang all go to reinterrogate Drew for some reason, I guess to get him to confess that Travis is involved. They're wasting their time. They should be looking for Travis, not doing this. They have phone records from the jail that show that Travis called Drew before and that Travis also deposited $25,000 into Drew's bank account. They didn't even really need to talk to him because Drew doesn't know where Travis is. But then Valerie says that she's got a notification from one of her property's lockboxes that somebody's accessed it, which means Travis must have used it. Surely he must know that a lockbox sends alerts. I mean, I guess it's an electronic box. I don't know what they mean by this, but either way, it's his cabin, so he would know that the lockbox would send this alert. So why the fuck would he go commit a murder at his own property? This is all way too convenient for the plot. Once Isabel and Travis make it to the cabin, Isabel tries to run off, but Travis bashes her head in and then drags her inside. He roughs her up some more to get her to sign, even pulling out a knife.
Jesus Christ.
That he stupidly leaves out on the table. Isabel must have rolled a nat 20 on stealth and somehow manages to get the knife, hide it, and then shank him in the thigh. I don't know how she managed to get it without him noticing, but whatever. And also I'd have gone for a neck shot, not a thigh shot, but also whatever. She runs out into the woods, her hands are still bound, and she just kind of runs off. Cut back to Mac. He and the others have just arrived at the cabin, and they follow a blood trail out of the cabin into the woods. They find Travis and Isabel, but not before Travis can take her hostage.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know why he doesn't just give up at this point, considering there's no realistic way for him to escape this. Everybody's seen his face, but I guess we need a dramatic finale. Of course, Isabel gets away, but because she's a good Christian woman, she begs the police not to shoot Travis, so they don't. And, I mean, he's, like, not a problem at this point, so I don't know why they would shoot him. Whatever. They were going to shoot him, and they didn't. There's another big dramatic kiss between Isabel and Mac, and he realizes that obviously he should stay in town with her because this is a romance novel and we need a happy ending. The next chapter is a 2-month time skip where we get this little where are they now moment for all the characters I don't give a fuck about. All you guys need to know is that Mac took one of those open deputy jobs so he can stay in town, and I guess is not going to be a ranch hand anymore. They didn't talk that they hired a new ranch hand, whatever. Zoe, the foster kid and the baby's mom, shows up out of nowhere and says that she wants Isabel to adopt Lily, which is awfully convenient. So I guess they're just going to adopt that baby now. Not going to send her back to Zoe or the CPS, whatever. Then Mac gets home from work and drops to one knee to propose to Isabel, despite the fact they've only known each other for like less than 6 months at this point. Because of their trauma bond, Isabel obviously says yes, and there's the happy ending. Show's over, folks. Nothing to see here. That's the end of the book. After all the horrifying shit Isabel went through, and by proxy put the kids through, there's a light at the end of the tunnel because she doesn't have to be a single mom anymore. She gets a hot new man that she's way, way, way more interested in than her dead husband, and finally gets a baby of her own that she won't eventually have to give back. In all seriousness, this book was a fun read because of how absolutely bonkers it was. However, I'd struggle to recommend it to anyone. The pacing is all over the place, with there being no first act to actually set up any of the characters, and then having random spikes of action rather than the steady build-up. There are multiple, what I would call finale events, or you can say climax, like the being kidnapped at gunpoint and all that. Why did we need like 5 of those happening? Just pick one for the finale and build up to that. Don't put them all in. Like, pick one, girl. The cast of characters is obnoxiously large, considering none of them really ever do anything. Even Mac and Isabel don't really do anything. They just sort of react when things happen to them. They don't really make choices of their own. All of the characters feel like puppets being dragged across a stage rather than being real people with agency. The romance in this novel is built on a trauma bond rather than a genuine connection or chemistry. The plot twist of Lily being Zoe's baby is lame because we never even met Zoe before or knew anything about her. The plot twist about Travis being involved is lame because despite meeting that character on the page before, he didn't stand out in any significant way. This book really didn't manage to do anything effectively, but I was still compelled to read it because of how batshit it got. Oh, also this book is clearly self-published. I think you probably could have realized that by now, that it's got a severe editing issue, because I think a good editor would have fixed, or at least tried to fix, all the issues I mentioned before. They definitely should have caught the multiple typos I found throughout the book that you can see on the screen now, some of which were in very serious, pivotal moments that completely killed the tension and had me laughing out loud. So that's it. That's Peril at the Ranch. I truly really love books that are so bad that they circle around to being kind of good again, so stick around for more content like that. See you in the next one. Bye, guys.